Bagseed Chronicles.
To source the best genetics you can possibly find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Bagseed Chronicles. I am your host, Uncle Dig. Today I'm excited to share with you part one of a two-part interview from Oregon living legend, Higher Peaks, from the Oregon Rooted podcast. And stick around before that, because I bet you're wondering what's going on in my garden. Uncle Dig's garden update. Hey, we have sprung forward our clocks at the time of recording, so it is getting closer to mattering that we are in Zone 8B and that we are in mid-March, but it doesn't matter yet. Let's talk about the 4x4 in the garage. So, I killed the problematic big bud seedling that had nothing but problems. The other plants have had chronic deficiencies. Part of that is my own limitations. I can't really spot the deficiencies as quickly. I'm a little bit colorblind. I don't know if I've discussed this before. Now I know that I can put way more worm castings in than I thought I could, and I can feed a little heavier with these organic amendments, so next time this will go way better. The plants already seem like they're kind of in a fade, but they smell amazing. I believe the blackberry will be the first to finish, and the bust down patek smells like sugary deliciousness mixed with BO. I just love it. Now let's talk about the 2x2 in the garage. I got that up and running, and the Girl Scout cookies that was in my studio has been moved out into the garage, and it is coping with that transition very well. I've learned a lot from the other autos this run, and I've already fertilized it a little heavier, and it seems to be happier for it. It is a few weeks behind the plants in the 4x4, and she is just a happy little girl, and she really does smell like cookie dough. And what else? Guess what? In my studio, as we speak, there are 10 cannabis seedlings that are photo period regular seeds. They're not even feminized. I tried to pop 11, but I only got 10. 5 of them are Fire of Maroof, which some of y'all who have listened to the podcast a while will be familiar with. It is a landrace Afghan crossed with Fire OG from Red Scare Seed Company. 5 of them are bag seed. Of the bag seed, 1 came from a Forbidden Fruit, another from a Gelato 33, 2 came from a Wedding Crasher, and 1 from a Jaeger. I suspect that the Jaeger is male. We shall see. These poor seedlings have had such a rough start at life. I forgot to turn on the fan, so they are a bit spindly, and I just remembered to turn on the timer, so they should have their first dark period tonight. Just king oopsie the past few runs over here, okay? Once all of these seeds grow out, I'm going to sex them and then clone them to make sure. And whatever I have left, whether it be 3, 5, or 7, will go out, and then I'll use feminized seeds to plug in my 10-hole photo period garden. And later on in the spring, I will be starting some autos because I will be doing an auto run outside as well. Well, that's it for the garden update. Let's overgrow the world. All right, everyone, please join me in welcoming Higher Peaks from the Oregon Rooted podcast, The Dirt Show, to the Bagseed Chronicles. Higher Peaks is a cannabis grower, cultivator of psilocybin, proud father, guitar lover, podcast producer based out of Southern Oregon. Welcome to the podcast, Higher Peaks. Thanks for being on the Bagseed Chronicles again. How are you doing?
Hey, man, how you doing? That was quite the intro, man.
I like giving people good intros.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
I'm going to have to take some notes on that.
It's fun. I wrote it beforehand.
That's cool. Good job, man.
Thanks. What are you smoking on these days that you're enjoying?
Oh, wow. Well, we talked about this some earlier, but
yeah,
God, the terps, man, you know I love the orange terps, and you know, people cycle in and out of phases with terps.
Yeah.
But I just always go back to the orange ones. You
Okay,
know,
cool.
so anything that's obviously Tropicana.
Okay.
The problem is with a lot of those orange terps, those are sativas, man.
Right, yeah.
And so it's like I have to find hybrids, but other than that, no. I mean, I like what you like too. The skunk and the burnt rubber is a favorite.
That one's hard to find.
My Wilson Zero came out like that.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Do you still have some of that?
I do. I do.
I want to smell it later. Okay. I just want to smell it.
Just smell it.
Just let me
I need to
smell
give you
it,
some
smell.
samples, man. We haven't even broke into it yet.
Oh, okay. I don't want to rush your cure or anything. So, how was harvest this last year? You told me earlier, but we weren't on the podcast. I saw you were trimming for like a really long time this year. You were posting about it. You had like Netflix up and like trays out and were just going for
I'm
days.
such a whiner, man.
I didn't mean that.
Yeah, no, I am. What's your least favorite part of the process? You know, trimming is mine. And
Clean up after
trimming?
after everything. Like when I'm done, like when I've got like stalks out in the yard and I've got, stuff on the floor from trimming in my garage and everything's done. And then I have to like clean it all up. I hate that. I'd rather trim than clean after trimming, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was trimming alone, man. This year I was alone trimming. So lone wolfing it on about 6.5 pounds.
Oh yeah. That'll do it. That'll make you.
So it gets a little redundant, but you got to get it done quick, man.
Yeah. You're on a timeline with trimming.
You can't really like spread it out. I guess people do, but I want to get mine. I want to get mine done and in the jars and processed properly.
That's how I feel. If it's ready to trim, it's dry now.
Yeah.
In 24 hours, it might be too dry.
Well, and a lot of people will just like trim as they smoke it. Like,
I have some old heads, some older growers that do that. They break it down. I want to say like tote size sections, about 18 inches long, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll buck off the leaves, and they'll leave the bumper leaf on, put it in there, and they'll rotate it periodically, and it'll cure in there. Some of it is like really, really, really good, and some of it is not. And a lot of times it could depend on a lot of things because they're being real rough with it. They're rotating it periodically, but they're not like I burp my jars twice a day starting out, and then I kind of scale back as we get deeper into the curing process until I'm not opening them at all, except every 6 months just to kind of smell and make sure there's not like something off, like maybe like I've never had it happen, but I hear if you long store too early, you can get like a urea smell from letting it stay too long and a little too moisture, but I've never run into it. But I always told to just smell them every 6 months to make sure they didn't go bad. So I do that. I don't know if it might be bro science, but I'm doing it.
I want to say, man, though, part of the reason of that freaking 6.5, 7 pounds is because I was, I've been working that soil for 7 years now.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to do my little step podium thing of talking about the whole living soil bullshit. It's really worth building soil, man.
Okay.
I spent 7 years building that soil, and I don't let anything touch it but organics, and most of it's dry amendments at that. And I'll tell you, man, last year, last year was 6 years. At 6 years, man, that soil was so rich and so like just like loamy, like it would hold water, but dude, it could flood back there. Like we had serious June rains.
Oh, I remember.
It flooded bad, and they got tons of water and no problems. I didn't even really have to add much for the veg stages. That soil just provided, bro. And then so these plants are getting huge. I had to scrog them. I basically doubled or tripled my normal expectations on my outcome, and all I really did was just that soil, and then at the end, after August, I did literally just straight bone meal and langbonite. That's it.
Langbonite. What's langbonite?
It's just a real fucking high organic potassium.
Oh, okay. Is that a product name, langonite? Or?
Langbonite? No, it's just the
learning new inputs. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's an input. I just get the down to earth.
Okay. Oh, so
Yeah.
it comes at like the Grange Down to Earth Organics. Yeah. Okay. I'll look it up. That might be something to look into because I haven't. See, I always
you
learn.
can use you can use azomite, but that's like a much weaker version. It's
That's
great
what
for,
I've heard.
Yeah, but langbonite is a real high potassium, and then you throw in that bone meal. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck, and that gives you that phosphorus, and that's all I did, man. And those fucking plants crushed it.
I've used bone meal in the past and I had good results, so then I stopped using it. And honestly, I might reincorporate it.
Dude, I will. If there's anything I won't do is not use bone meal.
Okay.
If I quit everything, I would still keep bone meal.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So,
And
that's just me, though.
Well,
You
no,
know,
and,
just me.
and like we talked about this on Oregon Rooted. I'm a very experimental guy, and a lot of
too.
times I will try to figure out like, well, they say it needs it, but it doesn't need it, and I'll like kind of and the thing about cannabis, some plants don't. Like you could have a strain that you never need to pH. It does not care.
Yeah.
And then you could run into
Yeah.
a plant that if it's 6.2, but if it's 6.3, it'll just die. It'll just there's really sensitive plants out there, and there's really robust plants that don't have problems.
Yeah.
And it can really be a learning curve there. And so I always try to go for like strains when I'm shopping on seed banks that say like, oh, easy grow. I'm like, that's what I'm after. You know what I mean? Because it seems to be more fun to experiment with. They have a little less sensitivity than some of those cultivars I've heard can be really tricky, like really sensitive, really slow growing. I don't want that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I just like I'll have you fill my bud. I think that bone meal really adds some density too,
okay.
without adding PGRs, you know.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing. It's not on my list, but let's ask you about that. So I've heard a lot of talk about PGRs, and some of the pictures I see online of people saying that their PGRs just look like closely trimmed buds to me. And I understand that there's some like natural, and PGRs are plant growth hormone, right? Or growth regulators, right?
Growth regulators, yeah.
And some organic input have natural versions of that, like
Alfalfa does.
and bat guano, right? Has some of them in them.
Maybe, yeah, I believe so.
I mean, not like a lot, but a little bit.
There's trace amounts in the alfalfa, yeah.
Okay, so but then that's probably fine. But what are people adding that's not fine? What are people adding that's making this like weird, hulkish, almost flavorless, bulky like weed that people are talking about?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know specifically.
I've never run into it in Oregon that I know of.
Like a classic example is like mammoth pea.
Oh, okay.
So mammoth pea is it's a bacteria essentially that allows for much higher phosphorus intake, right?
Okay, cool.
So for your budding stage or flowering stage, I should say, you are gaining, like they claim 16% ish more.
Oh, wow.
More bulk in your bud. A lot of that isn't the size; it's translating into density, and where that, you know, a lot of people believe, there's a lot of talk on this, but a lot of people believe that comes from the fact that mammoth pea stems from alfalfa.
Okay.
It's processed from that, the bacteria is. And there's going to be some trace amounts of that PGR in there. And so, but I'll tell you, it works.
Right. But
And I'm not opposed to it. I've been a fan of mammoth peas since 2015-ish.
okay. But
And you don't need much of it, and it works great.
what is the health concerns with PGR? Because I hear people saying that like, oh, it's got too much PGRs in it, it's like bad for you, or there's like a burn thing where you burn it, it's bad for you.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing about that is there's really not like MSDS sheets on combustion.
Right. Yeah.
So
No.
I mean, you can even look up like phosphorus and there's on an MSDS sheet, and there's not a section that says that if you combust this and inhale it in your lungs, this is what it is.
Right.
It's happening. And so, you know, with that said, I mean, I don't know what is happening. I think a lot of it is because it's a hormone, and people don't like to think that they're putting anything in that would, what they feel is unnaturally affecting the plant.
Oh, okay. And that makes sense. And I understand that like some people want to have like
I mean, you don't want hormones in your beef.
right.
And so some people like Clonex, I believe, is a growth regulator for cloning. And it's like some people won't even use that. They want to use aloe.
Oh, see, I use that. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it all depends on what your personal beliefs and convictions are on that. I just don't personally have a problem with it. So
I don't have a problem with any additives that like if you
it's
can.
like here I just have to say this. It's like these people are generally these high, really achieving organic people, and the fact is like just because it's organic, just because it's natural, just because it's this or that doesn't make it fucking good for you.
Right.
Dude, arsenic is fucking organic, dude. Anthrax is a natural fucking occurring product. So I mean, you know, to just say, well, because it's a PGR, it's bad for you. Okay, well,
there's a lot of like natural byproducts that like,
you know,
like,
most
you don't
likely
want.
a lot of these things are bad for you.
Well, right, and that's the other thing. Like so, I don't always know.
But I mean, people use fucking alfalfa as mulch.
Right.
So shut up.
Right. That's probably like
God, man.
But then like there's the things that I worry about, like unnatural, like dangerous things, the things that I worry about in cannabis. I don't understand these PGRs very well. It seems like it's like any other input can affect the way the plant uptakes stuff. It just does it in a spectacular way. I don't know whether or not that's, like I said, I've heard rumors. I haven't sat down and read the science, and no one's ever been able to show me stuff that they describe PGRs to me and they show me this and that is that. Like it's very like nebulous to me. But the one thing that's not is some pesticides that people are using on cannabis. They shouldn't be. Like some of these like lawn pesticides and stuff. Like at least look for something that's safe for human consumption. At least try to start there. Yeah. Like I know that there's no MSDS sheet for like combustion, but like don't like what's a big one that people talk about? What Eagle 20.
Well, I mean, God, Jesus Christ, man. I mean, we've kind of proven that though, like with the things that are in it. But I mean, like, I don't know where to start with pesticides and stuff like that because, again, it's all about what you're going to allow yourself to consume. Because here's the deal: I wouldn't want to smoke sulfur. You know, and people use sulfur. I'm not saying it's in the end product. I'm just saying these are things that people use along the process.
I don't use
people say BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. People say that's bad to smoke. People say it is partly a cause for hypermetheus or high cancer.
Hyperemesis, the one where you
or whatever
vomit without the hot water.
Right.
Cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, something like that.
So some people say it contributes to that. And
I've heard that about neem too.
Right. And so like, really? Okay. All right. Well, maybe you shouldn't be using that, you know? Me personally, I've used BT, and in some of my situations, had I not used BT, I probably wouldn't have had a crop.
I've used BT before.
Now, I don't have
veg.
Yeah, I don't have any symptoms or any problems that I've had associated with that. So maybe I'm a lucky person,
right? But
for my values and the way I do it, I don't have a problem using it.
Yeah,
again, it's if you you know, if that's how you see things, then definitely don't use it. But I don't know what you're going to go to.
Right.
People can use oils. Yeah. Oils tend to stick around. The thing is,
I've used sesame oil derivatives, and I if it's a really hot day, even if I do it the night before, I have problems with my stoma opening and like getting burned with the oils. A lot of times, if you don't dilute those properly, or you've got like a gummed up sprayer, you are the oils. You're just gonna have like little bubbles of oil, and it's gonna ruin your day. You really have to be careful using those oils.
Yeah,
they work, man, but.
I think for the most part, I would just like like people do mostly is just stay away as much as you can from anything in flour.
Right, yeah.
Right, so just attempt your missions during veg and have that IPM in veg because that way you won't have to have it in flour. But I mean, if you're really concerned, then you're going to just stay away from systemic stuff for one. No systemic shit. You don't want that stuff in the flour or in the plant. Right. You want it on it maybe.
And what are some examples of systemic stuff?
Oh, nasty stuff like fucking, what's that 7 that you buy on the shelf for your garden?
777 or something 7.
Yeah, 7. Yeah. That's systemic and it's great for ornamentals, but
because it gets right in the plant, so
it goes into the root,
and then
it goes in the roots, goes right up into the plant. It's uptake, and then it sits there for up to months. A pest comes in, eats it, touches it, whatever. It's coming out of the plant. Well, that's definitely a no-go,
right?
But you know, I would start there. And then,
Yeah.
and then pick what you think is the healthiest. If you think sulfur is better than another product, use that. I mean, I don't know what to say, but
That's why I like home grow. Like, you can choose how to grow your stuff. If you want to
whatever you want to put in your health.
If you want to grow a science experiment out there with like a bunch of chemicals and spread, like, that's more power to you. But you should warn people before you let them smoke it.
now, what's the best way? The best way is probably an indoor grow without ever having to spray or use anything. That's the best, right?
I think from a
Clean point.
From a clean point, but
Yeah.
also I think I'm one of those like guys that think you maybe lose something with the indoor versus the outdoor, if all things being equal.
Okay.
But I'm also
Another
hippy-dippy,
argument, I agree.
like-
I think outdoor is more of a full spectrum product all the way around. But I'm saying as far as cleanliness,
yes, totally.
indoor you have control over.
Yeah.
You know, the pollutants in the in the environment, and then you also have more control over bugs.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
It was a night and day bugs talking about indoors and outdoors.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately indoor full run without any spraying. Yeah, dude, that would be kick ass. Does that happen? Not really.
I would say even if you're having a completely uneventful run, like I use Dr. Symes, and even if nothing is going wrong indoors, mid veg and right when they start showing like just not flowers, but like the little pre-flowers, so you know like an auto is getting ready to flower or a plant's mature and they might start stretching or flowering, I'll hit them one more time, even if nothing's wrong indoors, because it's a real gentle. But then if I know if there's like one mite on there that I didn't kill, well, maybe I got that one mite or whatever, you know what I mean? But if I'm not having problems, I still do 2 applications of a real light mixture of Dr. Symes, which I think is like a citric acid mixture. So hopefully that's pretty gentle. But like I'm not spraying them on there at week 8 of flower. You know what I mean? I'm just not doing that.
Right. Well, I'll be honest, you know, and this is going to sound like a fucking commercial for Mammoth P, but I'll be honest, I do use can control. That is essentially all I ever have to use now is I use can control. And, you know, it takes care, it's just thyme oil, right?
Okay.
And now people say, why you spend so much fucking money buying Mammoth P thyme oil? Why don't you just either make your own thyme oil or go buy thyme oil? Well,
why don't you make your own CalMag too?
Wait, no, but, well, I do.
Yeah.
But my point is I have, and I've also tried other people's thyme oil, and ultimately it doesn't work as good.
Right.
Now, the Mammoth P, they kind of isolate the compound and concentrate it. They don't just have concentrated oil. It's actually the compound in the thyme oil that's concentrated, and it works better. But I'll tell you, dude, I use that through veg, and then I'm done in flower. I just don't have to use it.
Okay,
And
cool.
The only thing I have to fuck with in flower, and anybody that grows in Oregon knows this, is those fucking cats, the caterpillars. Okay,
Oh, those fuckers.
so
I've
you
lost
got
weight.
You
So
got
much weight.
That's the thing. You got to figure out how you're going to deal with those, and aphids.
Yeah.
Okay, those 2 things you have to figure out in flower. What are you going to use? I don't know, but I'll tell you what I do know works.
yeah. And folks, I use BT. I'll use BT like up through like week 2 of flower.
If you do it right, you don't need to use it that often.
Okay.
So if you do it, what I do is I always hit it first thing hard mid-August.
Okay.
Hit it a couple times in mid-August, give it a month and hit it like mid-September.
Okay.
And then once it like, not even into September. Well, maybe if you have to into September, and then after that you're home free.
Okay. I'll try that next time.
And
instead
that'll
of
give
my
you
weird nonsense.
that'll give you at least maybe a 3-week rest period until
you can't spray anyway, and there's nothing.
Well, no,
to do,
it'll
yeah.
just you let
Nice.
it just go right on out, and it works for me. Sometimes I can only do 2 treatments and get away with it.
Right.
But you have to hit it real early. You have to hit it like the first 2 weeks of August.
Okay. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like a lot of times, the bottle will tell you how to apply it one way, but depending on what pest you're targeting, you might ask a local grower. Because like I found out recently, part of why my mite problem was so bad is what I was using to combat it. I should have just sprayed it every night for 3 days, and then cycled off, and then every night for 3 days, and I didn't do that. And so that was part of my problem, is I wasn't hitting critical mass, like die, break. You know what I mean? And now I know that with some of the lighter organics, you kind of have to apply it maybe a little more often when you're doing a treatment. And now that I know that, maybe I can rest it by. But next year I'll learn a new hard lesson about what can cut into your yields. I've done caterpillar losses.
Yep.
I've done aphids that I had never seen because I'm not from here. So I saw black aphids. I'd never
Yep.
seen black aphids before. Well, there are black aphids here,
Yep.
and they ate my plant, and I lost a lot because I let it go too long. And once they get into
They're
that part
just
of
like spider mites, dude.
Yeah.
They get to a certain tipping point, and you're fucked. And remember the other thing too, this is a little, I don't know if we shared this last time, but this is it, man, is you make sure there's no ants on your plants.
Yeah, you did show me that.
Control your ants, because those ants will harvest those aphids. They will make little fucking nurseries on your plants for you.
When I told you last year, a big part of like during veg is I'll dust the earth with diatomaceous in the pots.
Yep.
And I told you I ran out and I couldn't find anywhere with all these supply shortages. So literally like 2 days ago, I was at the Grange. I bought 2 bags.
Yeah.
Now I go through like a half a bag a year. It's not, you don't have to use much. It goes a long way. But
until you water.
Right. Well, and I'm lucky. Like early on in the season, I'm only watering like once every 3 days. I'm saturating the pot, and then it's So you can water one day and then wait till mid afternoon when it's like dried off. This if you're not having rain, and just be like splash, splash, maybe a little bit on the lower foliage. And if you're in early on in veg, I'll even throw it right on the top of the plant if it's not a super bright day, and then I'll just leave it on there, and then I'll rinse it off the next day real good, and or maybe even the next day. Whenever I water, I rinse usually, and that does it. Now, don't put that stuff on the flowers, but it works great. And then as soon as I see any pre-flower, I stop with the DE because it's hard to wash. It takes a couple washes to really get it all off, and I don't want any of that in the joints of the buds when they start forming. Yeah.
And the thing about all this is there'll be someone that says that's the wrong way to do it.
That's fine.
You know what I mean? Like, So it really all just gets down to really just your methods and what works for, like you said, your environment, man.
Yeah. You do what works for you. So if you don't like what I'm doing, then grow your own weed. And then you're not, that's the thing. Grow your own weed and you're not at the mercy of anyone else.
Yeah. And there's certain tricks. I mean, like I told you earlier, I don't go for these big colas that, donkey dicks, as they say. I don't like that for many reasons. I like the golf ball sized nugs that turn into grams when they're done. The caterpillars don't like them as much. They don't fuck up the volume of your weeds. So if they camp out in a bud, they're not ruining, 14 grams of dried bud. They're just ruining maybe a gram or two. And so that
makes sense.
Yeah. And who wants to, I mean, that big donkey dick is going to get broke down.
I know, but it's fun to look at it hanging. And
it's
take
amazing, but damn, dude, it goes back to even mushrooms, dude. Like,
when it turns out, though, it's some of the funnest things you can do. Breaking down like a big 14-gram nug, it's so fun.
You're like, there's 4 grams. There's 4 grams.
There's the biggest blunt I've ever had in my life. Crack.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. It's just practicality.
No, totally, and I agree.
And those big buds, if you want to fuck with mold, that's a good way to do it.
It is, and that's one thing. Depending on what part of the valley you're in, because we're queen microclimate up here.
Yeah.
Medford has higher humidity in autumn than where I'm at. I'm out near White City, and the humidity spikes stays lower longer through flower, I think, than down here. I think just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I hear people talking about what humidity readings they're getting outside and inside their structures here in Medford, and they're about 5 to 10% higher than what I'm getting.
What are you hearing from people?
I hear like anywhere from 60 to like 80, like 60 to like 70% outside, like sitting there. I have to add humidity to my drying room in the first part. Like it'll be like 40% outside, like, or 30, and like, unless it's raining, unless it's actively raining. So I have to like make changes every 12 hours. Like I'm constantly monitoring my environment. I'll switch off a humidifier, turn on a dehumidifier or whatever, turn on a fan, turn off a fan. Like I'm doing that constantly. But that's the other thing with big outdoor plants. If you're doing like drying a pound at a time, then it's worth it to go out there 12 hours and flip a switch, or whatever you got to do. Because the conditions in my garage, I'm drying in a garage, a single car garage. I'm hanging up on electric fence horsing wire because I know it's nice. A surface that can be cleaned really well.
Yeah.
And so I it'll hold a lot of weight. And so I put that up there, and then I've got that hang. Nice. I just hang the plants on, and not a whole plant hang, but like a branch at a time, like a big branch. I hang it. I clip all the bumper leaves, and I let it dry nice and slow. And I'm shooting for 9 to 14 days. I've gone longer, but longer I start to get worried. I just get worried about mold and stuff. If there's still if there's no drying happening after like 2 weeks, I start to get really worried because I've had some stuff that did not want to get dry before I really had dehumidifiers in there. First few years I didn't need dehumidifiers. Like I said, it was pretty low humidity, and now last couple of years it seems like the weather has been more what like older people from this area said the weather was like here. Because we had midsummer rain last year in June. It was It was amazing.
Yeah.
But it was weird. It was a weird farm. It was a weird gardening year.
Yeah, I didn't have to water, but every like fucking 3 weeks or some shit.
It was a late, like, honestly, last year until the mites got me, I felt like I was having the easiest year growing, because for people who don't know, in big outdoor pots or big containers, a lot of times if you're using any kind of organics that's really dense, you're only having to water like every 3 days until that root ball really fills up its area and it's getting real, and then you'll have to water every day during the peak of summer. But in June, you're only watering like every 3 days. But if it rains,
you're not.
You're cutting your work in the garden in like half.
Oh, easy.
And it just rained in June, and then it was like, oh,
you just watch them grow,
and then it was like, oh man, they're getting thirsty. And then I look at the forecast, I'd be like, that's the other thing about water. You sometimes have to play Russian roulette with the rain in the outdoors. Like, you're like, okay, am I going to water now, or am I going to let them be too dry for a day? Because I know we've got like all day rain for 3 days, and then I know that no matter, like, do I let them be too dry because I know they're going to be too wet, or do I water them a little bit and the soil's like not properly, like some of it's hydrophobic, some of it's not. Watering can be a struggle outdoors.
Well, and that's why I brought up that whole thing about building that soil back there. Is it was such a buffer for that. It would hold, like, it could rain for a week. And I'm thinking, fuck, my plants are going to get waterlogged. They're going to start getting, like mold or fungal issues. They're going to be drooping. They're going to slow their growth. No, dude, no problems. And then, like, when I'd go a couple days to dry them out and stuff, it was a nice, good average with that soil. So that's why I say, outdoors, it's worth building the soil up.
Even, now that you mention that, I haven't even thought about that, but I've been doing my first, like, true organic, no synthetics. I haven't had to give them CalMag at all. It's just what I've been giving them in the worm castings and a bloom and an all-purpose 444. That's all they're getting.
Well, you eat eggs, right?
Yeah.
So just make your own CalMag, man.
Oh, I just got turned on to that recently.
It's so easy and cheap, and dude, you can dump this fucking, it's endless. You can make jars of it.
But what I was gonna say is that's all. Like, and I had a good blend. I bought some Fox Farms. It's not the greatest blend, but it's a good solid blend. I put that in there. Worm castings, like I said, all-purpose 444, and then I think I was looking for a 7.4, and it was like a 7.3 something bloom, but I got it. It was fine, close enough. Boom, that's it. And then an amendment of different blends of that, and I'm just trying that, keeping it super simple because I've never done it before. And even that, like, it does seem like I can go longer without watering. And when I water, it seems more effective. And when I overwater, which I haven't done but once this time, and I was really just trying to water to Roan off to see how much they would hold. And so I ended up, like, leaving them in a puddle of water for like 15 minutes to make sure they could suck it all up, which I consider like maybe a little too long. But I just wanted to see how much I could get in there. And when I did that, they didn't respond like I'd overwatered them at all. They still were fine. They didn't wilt or anything. So I think the organic soil, there might be something, like you said, there's definitely something to it outdoors, but I think even indoors, there's a buffer with that.
If you can bring that soil indoors, it's hard to build indoors.
Well, and like I said, I didn't build it. I bought a pre-built blend and then I'm adding to it. Yeah. But just from that, I'm experiencing, like, I'm having a different watering experience. Like, even I'm in flower, the pots are filled with roots. I still only have to water like every couple of days. Normally when I'm using salts, and I think also the soil's just very depleted by the end of flower when I'm using salts, because I start with organic and then I start feeding it salts and all kinds of stuff, and then by the end it's kind of nuked. And so now that I'm not doing that, I'm experiencing like a whole different, like, way of gardening that's like similar to what I'm doing with my other stuff, and I'm kind of feel like I'm coming full circle in a weird way.
That's good.
Like, I feel like the cannabis is going to become more like the veggie garden and vice versa, and I think both are making the other one better.
I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah. And I saw that you were starting to grow some auto flowers recently. And I saw in your post on Instagram you were talking about something called semi-term growing.
Mm-hmm. Semi-full term.
Semi-full term. What did you mean by that?
So this year I got sponsored by Atlas Seed to grow their auto fems. And so, but they also have semi-full term and full term.
Okay.
So they sent me the full selection. And so I'm going to kind of plan out a full season of using auto, semi-full term, and full term. Now, so everybody pretty much knows autos. You know, it's not photo dependent. It just fruits. And then full-term photos are just that. They require certain types of lighting situations for fruiting, or I say that because of mushrooms. For flowering.
We'll get there.
I know. But semi-full term. So in the context that I use it, which is how, say, Atlas uses it, is that semi-full term is a photo period crossed with the F1 auto.
Oh, so it's like an auto that gets really big.
Well, no. Well, it's the first stage in the auto process. So it's the F1. So you take a photo period plant that you like, the parent plant that you like some traits of that have been stabilized. You cross that with an auto.
Okay.
That first generation F1 is going to be a quote unquote semi-full term. That's what we're talking about.
Oh,
that semi-full term plant will have some characteristics of the auto and some of the photo, but it's not a full auto at this point. It is just the first blend. What happens generally in that generation is you'll just get a shorter flowering plant, so it's not really an auto per se, as in you can run 18 hours of light and it'll flower. But it'll operate on the 12-hour photo period, but its flowering time is much shorter, so it acts more.
Oh, so when it starts, it's not like a photo period where they're kind of like, I'm going. It's just like boom on. Like when it starts, it just goes.
So say a normal photo is going to finish in, say, mid to late October, if not November,
right?
For sativas.
Yep.
Whereas a semi-full term is going to finish like in September,
right? Okay.
And then an auto, is going to finish in 3 months.
Right. Okay. So we're bridging the gap between.
It's kind of a bridge, yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's the F1. So once at that point, you can carry it on and make it an auto or whatever you're going to do. But some people just like those semi-full terms. They like the fact that it's a shorter flowering period, but that it still acts like a photo period plant.
That's actually really cool. That's neat.
Bigger yields.
Oh yeah.
But shorter flower.
Okay, cool. So that's interesting because I never actually heard of a semi-term plant. So that's really cool that you're able to grow those. I bet those are hard to get a hold of. I bet.
I don't know about hard. I just don't know if anybody promotes that kind of.
Yeah.
I've had a few, like when I first started what I thought were autos, they weren't. They were semi-full term. And that confused me. So people that are growing autos out there, make sure you do talk to those seed breeders and make sure that you're understanding whether it's an F1 auto where it's a semi-full term or if it's a full-blown ruderalis mix auto that's, no matter what you do is going to do its thing. So,
but I wonder if the semi-term might be a good way to bridge the gap with like.
It absolutely is. I'm going to run them too. I mean,
I can't wait to like both watch on Instagram and listen on the podcast to find out how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited.
I'm really excited to see them too, because like I'm just like that's what I like about cannabis. I always says people like, oh, pick something that you're never gonna get bored of. Like I feel like every 10 days I learn something new about cannabis.
Well, and I think one thing is the auto section, the semi-full term and auto market really needs some beefing up. It's people have a hate for it. A love-hate for it.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to change. Plus that, I will tell you this. These strains that I'm growing with Atlas this year, I will tell you this. They are hype-based strains. Okay?
Yeah.
So meaning that what they did is they took some really good hype strains, GMO.
Right.
Cheetah Piss. Freaking Fat Face.
Okay.
Which is a Focus North badass strain. They took these really big hype strains, especially that are in Oregon, that they then made into autos.
Right.
So, and I like that because there's a lot of flavors like Tropicana, like GMO,
right,
like Fat Face, like some
GMO
of your
fan.
gassies,
Yeah.
that I would like to see in auto form, but still carry that real good parent genetic of a true GMO, of a true whatever. That's the direction, and I like to see that. Now, would I like to see some really cool craft stuff come out of autos? Hell yeah. But for right now, I'd like to see some solid flavors being able to be presented. And, and when I say solid, that's probably not the right word. Well-known flavors that a lot of people would recognize.
Right. You're
appeal to the masses, if you will.
Yeah. Like, what's a good one? Like a bunch of cookies crosses eventually that are stable. I don't know.
Well, and I get that. There's a lot of people that like craft over hype, and I do. But we really need to beef up the auto world.
I get hooked on hype strains, and then they just become favorite strains. They're not hype to me anymore. Like, I still, like, if you find a good, like, Thin Mint that someone grew out, Girl Scout cookie, I'm
Dude.
on that. I don't like who grew. I don't care. Let me smoke some. Like,
You know what mine is GG4, man.
yeah,
I fucking love Gorilla Glue. But can you find it? No.
You know, and honestly, I'm going to say some things. And listen, I am not casting aspersions on any way. Such is the way of the genetics market. I'm not 100% sure I've ever had a real Gorilla Glue.
Really?
I don't know because like there's so much stuff that's like close to what this other thing, and like I'm like, sure, you say it's Gorilla Glue, it's probably Gorilla Glue, it's good weed, it's good indica, but is this what those guys on those podcasts are talking about? Is that what? And I've always been skeptical of that. So what I always look for is like, how does it smell? And that's the other thing that COVID ruined.
But see, this is the thing: is if it's the real strain, I believe with a trained nose, you can tell.
Right.
For instance, I can tell Tropicana.
Okay.
I can call out GMO.
Okay.
I can call out Skittles.
Okay.
If it's the real strain.
Right.
But you get a variance, and I can tell just because I've worked enough time with the right strain. You know,
Right.
I worked with real Skittles.
Yeah. I
And it's
heard
got a specific Skittles
you had
flavor.
a cut of it, a real cut of it. That.
Supposedly, I'll be honest, that shit went to shit on me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
to hear
was
that.
pissed. It looked beautiful, smelled like Skittles. Go to cut it. It was the most midzy shit I've ever grown. I was
I'm
so
sorry
pissed.
to hear about that.
And I'd like to call the company out, but I'm not going to do that.
That's
I wouldn't
fine.
want to do that on your podcast.
That's fine.
A little frustrating though when you spend time and money on a
Dude,
quote
I
unquote
remember how
strain.
excited you and Lady Sativa was about that, because she was like, I got the real cookies. I'm so excited. She was hyped about it. She was ready to go. And I was like, man, I hope I get to meet them one day. I want some of that. And then you stopped talking about it. I was like, where'd the Skittles cut go?
Yeah, shit. It was shit.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's too bad, man.
It happens, man.
It
Never
does.
happened to you?
Oh, yeah. Well, that
There's
one.
so many fucking pollen checkers out there. Like, this is it.
It hasn't always been start like I won't if a strain goes bad on me, even if it's not the strain's fault, I won't grow it again. So I was really excited about this Star Killer strain that one of my buddies from another area had ordered off this seed bank, so I ordered it. But the LED street light, people have heard about the LED street light. I talk about it a lot, but the LED street light ruined my Star Killer weed. It turned it really larfy. The LED kind of interfered with its dark cycle, and I can't grow on that side of the house anymore. Now I grow autos over there. That's why. However, I won't grow that again, and I was really disappointed. But I've also had strains, like you said, you grow to full term, they look great, they smell great, and you smoke them, and it's empty.
Yeah.
It's like
a wet dream with no ending.
kind of, yeah. Like
You look at it, you go,
this
and
big,
there's nothing there.
I had a purple punch clone like that. I was so excited. It was purple. It was purple. It was so purple. I couldn't even believe how purple the weed I was growing. It was purpler than any other purple weed I'd ever seen in my garden. I was so excited. It was bulletproof. No matter what I fed it, no matter what, just big, chunky, beautiful colas. It tasted like weed.
Yeah.
Like weed. Like, I mean, not even like particularly good. It tasted like some like good college mids in the Midwest. Like I'm not trying, and I'm talking like 2000s. Like you're not even gonna go out of your way to get that. Like it, and it was fine. It was good medicine.
Like I could raise it up and sell it if I just bricked it up and made it look like Mexican weed.
dude.
Then I could sell it.
Well, yeah, but I'm growing this for myself, and I've got like a half pound per plant of weed that I don't like,
Yeah, it sucks.
and that's just not fun. So I don't experiment. Like if I'm going for an indica, I go for my smelly Afghans and like, stuff that I know is descendant from things I know I like.
Yeah, for sure. I just think it's one of those that even as a beginning grower, it's really a good idea to source the best genetics you can possibly find.
That concludes part 1 of our Higher Peaks interview. Tune in next week where we learn from Higher Peaks how to cultivate magic mushrooms, allegedly. You can reach me, Uncle Dig, on Instagram at Uncle Dig. The bumper music on this podcast was produced by Chad DeVilliers on ukulele. He can be followed on YouTube at Ukuleles Are Stupid or on Instagram at Chadwick Enterprises. Thank you for listening to the Bagseed Chronicles.